So I want to welcome everyone. People having fun at the festival so far? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You can't hear? No? Hello? Can you hear now? All right, so we'll keep the mics close to our mouths to keep it going. We have three very talented and successful actors here. Two? Only two? Okay, and Jeremy. And we're gonna, I don't know, we're just gonna have a sort of free-ranging conversation. People should feel free to ask each other questions as well as my throwing in. Jeremy, since he offered the disclaimer, we will introduce first. I came to know your work mostly through House of Cards, where I thought you were fabulous. House of Cards sort of defined the new genre of addicted television series. Addictive, you know, you can't stop and you can't look away, and it's sort of like a train wreck from day one. And who thought that reality would surpass fiction, especially such exaggerated fiction as that? But here we are. So anyway, maybe just a little bit to start, how you decided to become an actor, what the early stages of that were, when you reached the point of realizing you couldn't turn back, and where it went from there. So just a little bit.
I have so many things to say now.
Sure.
On a tangent, I one time said to Kevin Spacey, I said, Kevin, I actually think you would make a better president than our president. And he looked at me and he said, I'm afraid you're right.
You're right.
Yeah. I played the Giant in Jack and the Giant Beanstalk when I was in kindergarten. And quite seriously, at that moment, I knew I got to wear these big clodhopper boots that were my brother's. They had red laces, Mom's green tights, one of my brother's leather jackets. It was a lot of fun, and it was sort of, seriously, that was the moment I kind of knew what I was going to be doing. Well, maybe. And we lived in the mountains of Colorado, and at night, it was dark out. There were no lights, no street lights, because we lived in the mountains. And so the windows were reflective. So my brothers always teased me because I would be acting out stories in what became mirrors. The windows became mirrors. So that's kind of where it started. I lost my mother when I was in high school, and that kind of drove me into the theater even more intensely. And for a long time, I only did theater. I never did film or TV. And it took me a few years to figure out the difference in how to do that. Yeah, still figuring it out, actually.
Okay, good. I'm going to share with you a story I have, since you're talking about actors that could be president, is that I actually worked in 1996 on a film called A Stranger in the Kingdom, based on a Vermont story, and Henry Gibson and Martin Sheen were in the picture. And Henry was always a fun guy and would always stay in touch and send me these fabulous, completely esoteric Christmas gifts every year, like, you know, a silver nut grabber from, you know, Neiman Marcus, you know, in a velvet case, things like that. Something you really need. But anyway, and Henry and Martin had a funny relationship. They'd never worked together in a film before, but Martin they'd both lived in Malibu. And Henry's wife was Desi Arnaz's producer, and they had this fabulous place overhanging the Pacific Ocean. And he said every morning Martin would stop by his place while he was jogging to have coffee. And that was the nature of their relationship, is that, you know, they just had coffee every morning, but they didn't really socialize beyond that, and they were never in a movie together. But here they showed up in a film together, and it was a little bit of a Mutt and Jeff routine where Martin was playing the powerful state's attorney prosecuting a racial murder, and Henry was the incompetent county prosecutor. And so it was a fabulous little bit. But anyway, after we did this film, Martin got the job on West Wing. And I saw Henry in LA, we were doing some looping or something, and he said, by the way, Jay, I saw Martin at the grocery store on Saturday. And I said, oh, well, how was that? He said, he is the president.
Well, when you do a gig that you do for 8 years, it creeps in.
It creeps in.
Yeah, it creeps in.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway.
Never had a job.
He's never had a job.
I'm saying hypothetically.
Anyway, perfect segue. What's the musical accompaniment here?
We need more mics.
Huh?
We need more mics.
I hear. Oh yeah. Oh, it's
My
your.
alarm. I'm supposed to be here.
There we go. Yeah.
I
All
just
right.
started playing. I don't know. Oh my God! This is Shania Twain. I'm busy right now.
Speaking of presidents, Bruce, I think, has performed the most, really compelling, penetrating performance I've ever seen of John F. Kennedy in 13 days. Really an extraordinary performance. Really down. And I talked the other day. I was mentioning, there's always that question when playing someone of extraordinary fame, whether the performance is the temptation to have it become imitative is the biggest pitfall. And how do you find something fresh and original and authentic, within that? And I felt that that's exactly what you did. It was not an imitation of JFK. It was an original articulation of really essential qualities of his character as we knew it and even as we did not know it, because there are issues in the script that come forward, especially the struggle against some of the inner circle in the White House, where they were really opposing forces frequently. But anyway, let's start with, how did you get started, and when did you decide this is what you wanted to do, and what other kind of work were you doing as you began to make that transition, maybe, just a little bit?
My original intention was to be a professional skier and a poet, which was not a great idea to begin with, but thinking that I could make a living doing either. But then I had a couple of accidents that stopped me from skiing professionally, and I was in university and taking a wide selection of courses that were almost beyond me, so physics and economics and philosophy and English, and I realized I needed 3 easy credits to be able to pass the first year, and then I realized, well, acting is completely subjective. You can't be failed for being bad. So I took an acting course, but it happened to speak to all the things that I really love, which are storytelling and the language. Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me better now? It's pretty loud up here. Do you want to come up forward? Do you want to sit about that? Oh, I'm not allowed to say that stuff now. So I'm so old school that you can't, so I'm gonna have to put out a statement later. Anyway, so I got my start in university and then started working professionally on stage. I did that for about 10 years, and interspersed with doing real jobs, that like labor jobs, that kind of thing. I worked on a Navy ship for a while as a technician, and then just moved to LA on a whim and started working in TV.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we'll come back to that. And Polly has not played a president yet, but could be in your future. But you're related to William Weld, right?
No.
No? That's what's on the internet.
Is that how I got into this festival?
That's right. Well, your IMDb bio says that you are related to William Weld, who's currently running for the Republican nomination for president.
Ew.
So, anyway, that not being
Not
the case.
that I know of. I have done 23andMe. Maybe he came up as one of my relatives.
Yes. I did 23andMe also, and it told me that my cousin, who is here today and showing his movie at 10 o'clock, The Pollinators, was actually my 4th cousin. That's as close as they could get.
Okay.
He's my first cousin. Anyway, how did you get into it?
William Weld got you into it.
Yeah, William Wells got me into it. He encouraged me. I mean, kind of like everyone else, I didn't really know it was a profession, but we did these little movies at our my family did these little home movies, and I wrote one called Murder on Draper Lane, and that was where I played the detective, and my whole family and all of our neighbors were the what are the people that are suspects? On whatever camera my dad had, and then my dad didn't know how to edit, so I just heard him swearing in the, other room, and thought, well, I've got to get a better editor next time. Anyway, there was Murder on Draper Lane, then there was It's All Relative, where all of my aunts and uncles and cousins played sister wives of my uncle. And so it was like kind of a Mormon thing. It was a way of getting them all in it. The men played women and the women played men, and you had to be there, so. Anyway, so I think I kind of like that family filmmaker thing that we all, and I've been sort of doing it ever since, because I created a show sort of unintentionally, but it ended up being a hit on Nickelodeon that starred my two sons and all my relatives, including my husband and my brother who had a bucket list of the 100 things that he wanted to do, and one of them was to be in a movie, and so I just put him in, and he's rich, so he put in $100,000 into the movie, and then it turned out to be a big hit, and yeah.
Right.
And the movie that's here, that's screening at 10 o'clock, and since you're all up, you can go see it, is a movie that stars my sons, who are two now big star actors, Nat and Alex Wolff, so there we go.
Yes.
It's called Stella's Last Weekend. So I got a whole evolution of my whole life in there.
There you go.
Including plugging my movie.
And also, tell me, because I may be operating totally on incorrect information, sounds like.
Clearly you are.
But you also involved a lot of your co-stars in 30-something, yes?
Oh yeah, Melanie Mayron directed. Oh, in the first episode in the pilot,
Yeah.
was a pilot episode. It was just an indie movie, but then Nickelodeon saw it and thought it was perfect, for. It was kind of like my kids are musical songwriting prodigies, and they were since they were 6 and 9, and so I thought it'd be fun to do a movie that was like Spinal Tap meets Little Rascals. So that's what I did. I know it was really fun, and they wrote all the music for it and everything like that. And I put in all the crew from 30-something, and I put in every famous person I knew: Julianne Moore, Uma Thurman, Cyndi Lauper. It was like star-studded kids movie, and then it became a big Nickelodeon hit. So
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
Murder on Draper Lane too, big hit.
I mean, I think that's part of the appeal of working in this business, isn't it? Just sort of family and community and coming together for sometimes short, intense periods.
Yeah.
Although you were on a series that lasted, how many seasons? 6 seasons? Something like that?
No,
5
only
seasons?
4.
4 seasons.
I'm like him. That 8-year thing sounded really, really enticing.
Yeah, right. Let's touch just on, what's great and what's terrible about taking this on as a career.
Not working is difficult, and working is great. I mean, I got a text yesterday from one of the Teamsters who worked on House of Cards, and we're like brothers, and that's the great thing, the family connections that you make with people and friendships you carry. It's like any other line of work, I would guess, that you meet people that you want to take with you into the rest of your life. And doing, film and TV, those relationships happen really quickly. There's like a shorthand for, are you going to like this? Are you going to take this person with you or not? and you can suss that out quickly, and the bonds are pretty strong because of the pressure that you're under to achieve a level of quality that's, everybody's striving, and when you're striving to do that, there's a natural propensity for bond and love to happen. But when you're not working, it's hell.
I think one of the things about that cycle of working and not working is that it's inherently exciting, right? Even though it's kind of a bit of a freak out when you're not working, there's a certain amount of adrenaline that's connected with that keeps you hungry and keeps you curious, and it keeps me motivated. In fact, it's not a bad thing to be out of work and clawing the walls. It also gives me time to do other stuff that I really care about. And the other thing that both my wife and I have really enjoyed is just we get to go all over the world. It's been really amazing that way. And I like people, right? I like people, and I like talking to people, and it is like a big family. And so it's just fun to mix it up with family all the time, and do it with people from all over the world. It's been really fun.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't like people. No, I think what motivates most actors is just the need to be creative. So when I'm not working, I find other outlets for my creativity, and I think that's how I got into writing and how I ended up doing more than just acting. But I think there's nothing more fun than when you have a role that really excites you, with a cast that really excites you, with writing that really excites you, and with a director that really excites you. It's just so it's so thrilling, and it's really rare when you work that all of those things are in line. So sometimes working is hard, because you see what it could have been, or you see just what it's not, yeah. And so that, I think that struggle is kind of fascinating for actors, because in a lot of ways we're the least powerful on the chain, and in a lot of ways we're the most powerful. But I think we have to kind of we're at the mercy of a lot of elements. So that's why. That's what makes it exciting. Exactly. It's not, you don't go in and everything falls into place. You rarely go in and everything falls into place. And a lot of times when things fall into place, something screws up it. I don't know. It's not just you could see every single thing falls into place, and then it just sort of misses the wave, and no one sees it, or it's a business that depends on so many different people, and that's what's exciting about it, and that's what's frustrating about it. It's a team sport.
Like, it's a team sport, right? So it can be likened to if you're on a great soccer team or any kind of team, and you have a brilliant series of moves, a brilliant series of plays that don't result in a goal. It doesn't mean you haven't played brilliantly. It doesn't mean you didn't get tremendous enjoyment from passing the ball back and forth. And if nobody was at the field and the crowd didn't see it, it certainly doesn't lessen the enjoyment in the moment or the memory of it. So the stuff that succeeds, great. The stuff that doesn't succeed, if there was a vibe there that was engaging and fun, then that's why you're there, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah. I think, what actors, are trying to create is something that's quite ephemeral. It's sort of magic. It's pulling it out of thin air, and it's always that moment of performance. I mean, one of the great things about being on the set is that all of this coordination takes place to the moment of action, and then it's sort of like a wave, sort of recedes, and then it comes back again. And each time it's about finding that moment that's unexpected, you know, really. I mean, that's when it seems to be working the most. And so all of that involves trust and interaction with a director. I mean, I've always sort of said, there are no two actors that are alike, you know, which is part of the pleasure of being a director. Is finding the language, finding the connection, finding the way to shape performance, finding the collaboration, finding the conversation. But I imagine that no two directors are like. And so I'm curious, you know, maybe just trying to distill a moment or two in interaction with a director that you found particularly satisfying, or maybe not so satisfying. I mean, I was told by an actor that worked with Louis Malle, for example, the great French director, that he never said anything. Coen brothers never talk, okay? And that what Louis Malle would sort of do was give you facial expressions or body language, you know, so you had to sort of read, you know, right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was actually Susan Sarandon that made that comment about Louis Malle, who worked with him on Atlantic City. But so just maybe share a little bit in terms of working with directors where it really connected, or maybe working with a director where it didn't connect. I would imagine that I've talked to actors who felt dissatisfied actually with working with the director because they weren't getting anything, or maybe they were getting too much. But anyway, just maybe share a little bit about the nature of the relationship with the director, what you want, what you get, and maybe a situation where either or both has happened.
Well, you know, and doing film is very different from doing episodic television. Episodic television happens so quickly, and the director's job is so overwhelming. They come in usually to direct one or possibly two episodes. Oftentimes they don't know the crew. They are getting used to the new, whatever the thematic and rhythm sets of that show are. They're assimilating that. So really, there's very little that they bring to you, to your performance. Right. Like, you show up and you do your job. You say the words, you have the action, you be the person. When you're doing a movie, I find more relish in that because there is a bigger exchange, there's more time to exchange ideas. The breadth of the project is usually happens over from pre-production to the first day of shooting. You're already having conversations and making decisions and gaining a rapport with the director. And so there's, it's a little more collaborative in that way. It's less cookie cutter, it's not as quick. Mm-hmm. You can also, you know, you can justify asking for another take, which I always need, right? I need another take. But in episodic TV, you can't ask for that usually. I try not to, because I know it costs them money and time, and by Friday they're over budget, and you don't want to do that to somebody, because if they're over budget, they're not going to get hired next time, and so they're not going to hire you next time because you pushed them over budget. So I find that to be it's a fun challenge, but it's a different challenge, and it's not, for me, the way my brain is, it's not as creatively fruitful as doing film. So the best directors in TV, there's this guy, Alex Sakharov. I think he's one of the best TV directors out there. And he doesn't say a lot. Like, the last thing he said to me was, he went, maybe the glance. Maybe the glance. And I was like, maybe the glance, what does that mean? And then when I was in the scene, and he's like, oh, this is the moment. So I put a glance in, and that's all he was saying. And so the less is more. The negative stories I won't tell, because maybe that director will hire me again.
I think if you go in, if a director is quiet and you go in not having made a distinct choice and not really being comfortable with what you want to do, you're in trouble. because then you start to get insecure. But if you have a choice that you're committed to, if the director's quiet, he's buying it, and if he's not buying it and he's quiet, that's his fault, you know, and you're doing what you came to do. You know, otherwise, with a director who's communicative, there's all kinds of communicative directors, like Bruce Beresford, for example, dresses outrageously and is really vociferous and loves the language, and he'll sit on the dolly with headphones on, even if the camera's like 15 feet away from you. He'll sit on the dolly with his headphones on, and he'll have binoculars. And the first time I saw that, Bruce, what are you doing? Well, I just want to get right in there. And he'd come up and, you know, he'd, you know, hassle me and tell me to do this and tell me to do that, but we laughed all day long. So it wasn't, there was no, when you're doing something that he didn't buy, there was no sense of, no, that's wrong. It was just like, no, let's do something else. You know, so if the energy is positive that way, then there's no, it's not your fault, you know. It's not a problem to be overcome. It's just something to be thrown away, and you move on to the next thing, and it becomes play, and it's fun. And the other thing that I find, just before I forget to say it, is if I walk into a set past 15 semi trucks and everything, and there's 200 or 300 people working, if I remind myself that all these people went to all this effort just to put a little tiny camera in front of me and my scene partner, I'm in huge trouble. Although that's part of our responsibility, right, is to be able to ignore the fact that there's hundreds of people working their asses off to make it possible for me to have this moment. You know, and if you put that kind of pressure on a moment, the moment ain't gonna happen, you know? So we have to sort of live in denial in a certain way and arrive in this huge arena with the idea that there's no arena, there's just you and me, and we're just talking, you know? Right. So if you can play that game with yourself, you're better off.
Yeah, I agree, and now you've terrified me. I never even knew about those trucks and stuff. I just always thought it was just me. For me, the best directors just radiate positive energy and respect, and then nothing that you do feels wrong. And I love the directors that will then tell you in that way that you said, Bruce, right? Yeah, it's awful. Do something else, because that shows so much respect. It shows that you two are simpatico and on the same wave, and you can laugh about it, and if a director doesn't have a sense of humor, I have a hard time with that too. And directors that make it seem like it's play. My favorite director I've ever worked with was Steven Soderbergh, and he was he held his own camera. He knew exactly positively what he wanted, but he had so much respect for every single actor that he just assumed you were gonna, he would be like, yeah, that was good, let's move on. I mean, we did I've never been in a movie before where we did so few takes of anything, yeah. And so anyway, I think those are my criteria. They have to be smart, of course, but they have to be playful and respectful, I think.
And there are different versions of that playful and respectful. It can be, depending on who you're working with. A friend of mine was doing Lincoln, and he said when Daniel Day-Lewis walked on the set, it became church, right? Because his level of commitment and his type of commitment and the visibility of that commitment from the moment you see him walk on the stage is so profound that every member of the crew would just be in. No, Stephen told me this.
Daniel Day-Lewis spazzed out because because he wanted him in complete costume. It was late and he had already changed out of his costume, and then he was called back to do a few other things, and he put his costume back on and didn't put his shoes back on, and Daniel Day-Lewis wouldn't go on without it because he wanted to believe he was in the moment.
Yeah, well, there are those stories too, right? But yeah, that's an actor thing too. But so the version of play that you referred to can happen in there's all kinds of grades of play. You know, there's energetic, effusive, ebullient, fun, you know, no problem play, and then there's we're here to play chess and it better be fucking quiet. You know.
Well, yeah. I know two actors that were on that show, one of whom said that Daniel Day-Lewis was in character all of the time, and that if you saw him on set and passed him, you would simply nod and say, "Mr. President." And that
I insist on the same thing in everything.
well, we can get to that. And another one said that he was actually in the men's room at the latrine, at the urinal, and that Daniel Day-Lewis walked up next to him, and he was playing Secretary of the Navy. And that while they're standing at the urinal, Daniel Day-Lewis turned to him and said, "Mr. Secretary, your considerations of policy are appropriate, and I want to only hear more of it," you know, or something to that effect. And so he related something totally off script and just basically, you know, dealing with his Secretary of the Navy while, you know, on break during production. So that's Granger Hines said that. Anyway, very committed actor for sure. And, you know, one who's, that's one of the interesting things, I think, is how performance can be so absorbing. We're going to show First Reformed today, Paul Schrader's film, and you know, it's not an easy film, but every moment is so focused and shaped and articulated in terms of performance that, you know, it's not a question of the plot and where it's going. It's the absorption into that moment where you're having revealed to you elements of human behavior and emotion that are being articulated in a very fresh way. You haven't seen it before. It takes you someplace. And I think that's the magic that actors bring, and there's nothing else that goes into movies that makes it any more profound than that.
The thing that Daniel Day-Lewis does is part of preparation. You know, that moment that he had at the urinal, when that actor went back to play a scene with him, that's going to be in his mind.
Sure.
Right? And so, you know, much of what we do on screen, the preparation is all done off screen. Like most of our job happens before we step on set. And obviously you have to be in the moment and open to what's happening, but your preparation is, I think it's, you know, 90% of the job. Mm-hmm. And so what he's doing is he's just always in preparation mode.
Right.
For whatever's going to happen. Yeah.
Because you'll find new stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And it may or may not play literally, but it plays subtextually.
Right.
It's rehearsal. Which then, let's follow that up a little bit. Not every film has rehearsal, right? Especially independent films. And probably television. Do you have rehearsal on House of Cards?
Here's a blocking rehearsal. Okay, you're gonna come in, you're gonna sit in this chair, and then you come in, you give her the coffee, and then you'll leave out that door. Okay, let's show it to the crew. That's rehearsal. I'm serious. I'm completely serious. Is that what you've? No. It's fast.
Yeah.
It's fast.
Yeah.
So you better have your plan of action, and then you better be ready to throw that away and do whatever, whatever the action that is prescribed.
Yeah. So what do you do for your preparation then, if you're not having any rehearsal at all?
For House of Cards, I would always identify the space. Is it a car? Is it the White House? What's happening? You know, the basic questions. What time is it? Where am I? What's happening? Right. Who's there? Is this a public or private conversation? What's the rhythm of the conversation? Who's in the room with me? And then, you know, I'm maybe more of a technical actor, so I kind of know where the camera's going to be, and I'll even pick out possible eye lines. I think my eye line should be here for that. I think it's going to be here. I think they're probably going to be on a dolly. And so if they're on a dolly, I'm going to have to, you know, watch out how big my gestures are. Because for that show, it's highly technical. You know, David Fincher has everything lined up in a certain way. And so, and also the character was serving a function in the show. So you know that there's a certain parameter there. So for that role, it's a different preparation than, say, for instance, the preparation I did for Keep Going June, which is showing today at 1:30, which was almost no preparation, you know. So I think it also depends on the role. Bruce will disagree.
No, I mean, in terms of the rehearsal thing, quite often you'll, even in television, you'll walk in, there'll be a 2 or 3 page scene, and the director will say, well, what do you guys want to do? And you'll put it on its feet and move around a little bit, and then the stuff that he feels he can't effectively cover, he'll ask you to compress and change your movement slightly. But sometimes you end up coming with ideas that give him camera ideas. Other times it becomes too costly in terms of time, and he'll say, oh, please don't get out of the chair. Please, you know, just stand at the window. You know, but I mean, quite often we'll be given the chance to, you know, to move around and make some choices physically.
Are you gonna lean forward again? Don't lean forward.
Yeah, well, that's, you know.
Stand up straight. Say the line.
Yeah, just get it over with, Bruce. Nobody's interested.
Ditto. Yeah, I think that what are we talking about?
Rehearsal.
Oh yeah, rehearsal.
Preparation, rehearsal.
You know, both my sons are actors, and both of them prepare in different ways, and it led me to an understanding of my own preparation, because I've been doing it for so long. I guess I do it almost subconsciously and don't think about what it takes. And one of my sons was in this movie Hereditary, and which was a horror film. It was a terrifying, brilliant film, actually, but he practically had a nervous breakdown playing that character, because it was the first time that he had gotten to that place in himself, and it scared him so much. And I realized that if you've been doing it as long as I have, you can more easily access that part of yourself and then snap back. But if you've just started doing it, it's almost traumatic. And so apart from the fact that I threw my child into this horrible profession where he's traumatized, I thought it was kind of fascinating, because I don't think about my process. When I see a role, I kind of know I kind of know where to take it, or else I then know that it's not for me, or I don't get it. But I realized that long ago, I went through that kind of thing that he's going through now. And he was on the set with someone where he asked to be called by his character's name, which some people, you know, was sort of a Daniel Day-Lewis kind of thing to do. And he was only 19, and it was just what he wanted to do. And another actor was making fun of him for doing that. And I thought that was like the most disrespectful of someone's process thing you could possibly do. It was like, if Daniel Day-Lewis wants to stand at a urinal and pretend that he's the President of the United States back in 1865 or whatever it was, then he is entitled to do that, because that is what garners him the performance that he can give. And you're throwing a monkey wrench into someone else's process if you disrespect that, whatever it is. And sometimes actors have very difficult processes. Sometimes their process is to be exactly like how their character is, and their character is an awful, evil schmuck. And they treat you the way that their character treats you, and you have to kind of respect that is their process. And go ahead.
No, it's also a little bit like, as energetic as the actor might be and as committed as they might be and all the people around them might be, it's like it's a bubble in a stream. It doesn't take anything to explode that imaginary bubble that you've created for yourself and the people around you. So, as much as we wade in and bring energy to it, it's really delicate, right? And easy to just kind of, for somebody or an incident to just go, and the whole thing to just evaporate.
Yeah.
Which is, a little bit terrifying sometimes.
Yeah, I had a scene that I was directing on a film this past spring where an inexperienced producer, actually, I had like 5 minutes to make some adjustments in the scene. The two actors who were supposed to have real tension between them had become best friends off set over the last 3 days. And I was trying to get them, and anyway, this producer came into a private meeting and started telling the actors what they should do. And it threw everything so completely out of whack. It's that delicacy that you're talking about. I mean, it can be just dispersed in a moment and lose that thread, because you're trying to grab for the ephemeral. You're trying to make everybody comfortable and trusting for the unexpected, to take some risk, to go out there. And it's the minute you become self-conscious about it or get conflicting information, and that's the same thing with a director. You have to, you can make adjustments, but you don't contradict, where you've taken the actor, or else you're undercutting them, I think, in a substantial way.
Well, it's a version of that improv thing, which is yes and.
Right, precisely.
Right? Because if it's the flip side, it's like, oh, you're gonna do that. If it's any version of you're gonna wear that, you're gonna do that.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Then,
no, and I tell it to students. I mean, I say, even if you don't like this particular performance, the answer is good, and let's keep working it. Because in fact, what you may not like may be the stepping stone to what works perfectly. So it's not a matter of being wrong, it's just a matter of being along the path, and let's keep going down the path. And in the editing room, first of all, that first take may have been the best take, because who are you to say? You're the director, of course, fine, yes, but you can't judge it either in the moment. You can trust your own instincts and try to connect with the actor's instincts at the same time. Yeah.
I recently called my agent and said, I'm sorry, that didn't go well in the room. I just came out of the room, it didn't go well. And my agent said, they just send it to producers, shut up. So you really don't know.
Right.
And you can't try to know.
Or
you
to
have
judge
to
your own
throw it away.
performance. You can't judge your own performance.
No, because if you're judging it, especially while you're doing it, then you know it's not good. And even if you try to do so, it's Heisenberg's theory of absolute uncertainty. You can't be in the moment and then also look at the moment without changing the moment you're supposed to be in.
There you go.
And even if you are good at doing that, it doesn't matter, because it is what it is.
Right.
It's futile, so you just have to do it.
A lot of acceptance goes a long way, really, in that process. To keep
Let's
it open.
shoot some, are we ready?
Yeah.
The cameras are, let's go, let's shoot some.
Does anybody have a question? We don't have a whole lot of time left, but yes.
Alex, your son, wasn't he in Searching for J.D. Salinger, which was
Yes.
at the festival
Which was at the
Yes,
festival.
right. Alex.
Yeah.
He's really great.
Yeah.
Alex
he's fantastic.
Wolf was in Searching for J.D. Salinger, which we played
I think
at the
it was
festival a couple of
called.
years ago.
It was called Coming Through the
Coming
Ride.
Through the Ride, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's amazing. Both of my sons are really special actors. The star.
They are.
Yeah.
And they're both in your movie at 10 o'clock.
And they're both in the movie at 10 o'clock. Where is it playing?
Twilight Hall.
Twilight Hall.
There we go. And
I hear the seats are comfortable.
yeah. And Jeremy's in a short film playing this afternoon at
the Marquee Theater.
the Marquee Theater at
Going June. Keep Going June
Keep-
at 1:30.
1:30, Keep Going June.
That's right.
And Bruce,
I'm doing a puppet show at 4:15.
Sold out though. Sold out.
Bruce has 2 films playing because Bruce is one of this year's honorees along with Paul Schrader. And The Sweet Hereafter will play at 7:15 tonight
At Twilight Hall.
and tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, Wildlight will play at Town Hall Theater, so we'll have some more conversation with Bruce. And I think that it was Sweet Hereafter that really first drew my attention to Bruce's work, which is an extraordinary performance. I mean, I sometimes say, you know, I'm hoping with the character to create 50 different faces of the character during the course of the production of the movie. And certainly Bruce's performance in The Sweet Hereafter is so extraordinarily layered and distinct and shaped, and we see all of those faces. It's fabulous, absolutely. Where he worked with Adam McGoyan, fabulous Canadian director, with whom he also worked in an extremely challenging part in a picture called Exotica, which I think is also an extraordinary picture. Has anybody seen Exotica? A few of you have. Anybody seen Sweet Hereafter? Yes, a few of you have. If you haven't seen it, you know, check it out, because it's really unbelievable. And actually, Russell Banks, who wrote it, will be here this afternoon, who wrote the novel of The Sweet Hereafter. Anybody else want to ask a question? Kathy, go ahead.
First, thank you guys so much for your time. And Holly, I actually, based off of what you were saying about your son and kind of his, I guess, traumatic dealing with his character, I was wondering for all of you guys, as actors, having to play so many different roles and having to access so many different parts of yourself and the character, how has that impacted, I guess, your guys' sense of yourself, like, and your, I guess, sense of your own identity in a sense, like having to open and access all these different characters and identities? What are you guys?
Okay, so how has playing parts affected their own identities? Go ahead.
I think, in a way, it's healthy because everybody has those things about them, and being able to be that, to show that in a safe space we're so lucky to have that opportunity. I think people in the world spend their whole lives afraid to show things that are maybe unattractive or silly or emotionally out there. But I think that there's a kind of therapy to it, and I think it's I don't know. I mean, as I said, in Alex's situation, you have to have a certain sense of yourself before you can do that, to know that you can pull yourself back. But I think in general it's healthy. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's all true, but it's also one of those things where, because in life, actors are generally always at school. We're always watching, and not infrequently watching ourselves when we probably might be better off not to watch ourselves. I find that, you know, in emotional situations in my real life, at some point in that emotional situation, there'll be some tiny part of me that's watching the progression of that experience, and that which, as you're saying, inherently taints the experience, right? So I think that's in spite of what Paulie was saying, there are positive aspects to the ability to explore that kaleidoscope that we're all made of. There's also that thing of the third eye that can get in the way of experiencing that very thing that you're there to experience.
I think on the positive side, it increases your capacity to love your fellow humans, because you realize the thing that you saw that guy do, the guy that cut you off in traffic, it makes you realize, oh yeah, you're the guy that cuts people off in traffic too. My friend John Shanley says, Yeah, Jeremy, everybody knows everything. I'm like, John, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, everybody knows everything. And so we all know each other. We all know we have all of these people in us that we're playing. When doing theater, for me, it's more traumatic because you're in it every night for 3 hours. And I once played Biff in Death of a Salesman at Arena Stage, and my wife would wake me up every night having like nightmares about it. So that's the negative side. That can happen too. And I think you just have to arm yourself to know that you're going to get through it, you're going to be okay. And it's not like we're not operating on someone. It's not, we're not going to hopefully kill someone, you know. It's not life or death. So it's important to remember that what we do isn't actually that important. I mean, I think it's hugely important creatively and for the life of humankind, but we're not in the moment saving someone's life.
Stereo. We have just, yes, let's have one more final question.
Just wanting to honor all of you. I think you're fabulous. But I really wanted to take a moment to focus on Polly Draper from 30-something, a goddess. The reason I want to say it is you're really the first kind of characterization of a woman on TV that I saw that was really edgy, kind of out there, maybe a little borderline. Just some of the line readings were just like, what? You know, and I just loved you then. And you look the same.
We see
A big fan.
a huge fan of Polly Draper.
Thank you. That was such a great last question. Wait, what is your question?
All right. Well, I want to. Each of these three actors have done extraordinary work, have been at cutting-edge moments in their performances that have contributed hugely. And we're very pleased to have them here. Hope you'll check out their movies, and I think they'll be around if you want to, engage them. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear from you. Thanks a lot, guys.